There we go. So please welcome Craig Ferrantino from Craig James Financial. Take it away, Craig.
Thank you, Susan. Hope, thanks for having me again. Thank you for the audience for being such a gracious part. It's not my first rodeo with the Harborfields and ancillary libraries having an office here in Millville. I was very excited to be able to participate. I saw the sign said recording, so I am not going to sing right now. I know when I hear recording, I think I should be singing or playing guitar. I have a guitar behind me here, but what we'll be talking about tonight is getting fiscally fit. That's getting fiscally fit. And fiscally fit, believe it or not, one of our staff was saying, was it physically fit? And I said, okay, that's a different word, fiscally, physically. I could see where they made the mistake, but one of our creative members of our staff also did this muscle here next to my body. So I thought that was kind of funny. So anyway, thank you for having me. I'm with the Craig Ferrantino. I'm a certified wealth strategist, certified financial fiduciary, and we're very happy to be able to present here on a very busy week. Does not consider, you could just read that for a second. I'll give it a second while I check other things on my desk here. All right. We're not giving any advice. I don't work for the IRS. What else does it say here? I'm not providing legal counsel. You get the idea.
This is an educational only presentation.
That's right. It's an educational only presentation and barely at that, Susan, by the way. We'll do the best we can. So yeah, I do speak on occasion. This says a couple of things about me. I'm on the radio every day, which I got to get up early in the morning. I'm on news radio. I speak for about 10 minutes, 13 minutes on some days on Jay Oliver's LA in the AM with Jay. So that's what it's called, 103.9. You can also get it on your smart speaker. Just go 103.9, go WRCN, and you can hear me every 10 minutes. If you missed it, it's on our website as well. And you can read all this other good stuff. I am a volunteer EMT and fire police. If you hear a tone go off, I hope it doesn't. I am on duty tonight, and I did get an exception for this period. It's rare. It's only 4 times a month, but this is one of the times that I'm on there. It says some other things about me, so you could read this, or you could call, and we'll be more than happy to brag about myself. Let's get this presentation started so you can get back to your family and all the good things you're doing. So here we want to educate on how you can make a positive impact on your current situation. And we're going to talk about setting some goals and a game plan towards getting there. And we're going to provide you with sound financial information. That's our commitment to you. We won't want to come in here empty-handed and help you identify goals. And yes, there's a strategy session if you want to give us a call. All right. It's not always about what you make. Here's someone, if you make $50,000 a year, assuming you never get a raise for 20, 25, 30 years, you would end up with $2.5 million in savings after 30 years. So if you start a job at 20 and you keep the same salary, never get a raise, and assuming no expenses, and you live in your parents' basement or something, and they're very generous to you, by the time you turn 50, you could sock away $2 million and $2.4 million. If you do it that at 75, after 30 years, you sock away $3.6 million. The key is not making the money. The money comes to you. The question is how to keep the money that you make. It's not so much what you earn, it's what you keep. Very, very important. So today we'll discuss some of the things that prevent you from, either psychologically or whatever. And this is a great presentation, by the way. The first week in January, when people are looking at things, here we are at the end of September trying to figure this out. But very, very important. This is a pre-January discussion when people start getting their New Year's resolutions in place. And we're going to talk about 4 obstacles to financial fitness. I want to talk about 6 tools to help you achieve financial fitness. So, and starting to implement them. So number 1, the biggest problem is failure to plan is a plan to fail. And fail to plan is a Vince Lombardi line, very famous, having no direction. And a lot of times, and it's very easy to do that. We're in survival modes, whether you're going back to school or working your butt off in 2 jobs and running a family and with kids and everything. It's very, very hard you're in like a survival mode more. It's more like, there's expenses coming at you left and right. That, there's lacrosse camp and all these things. Having 3 kids, I know all about it. And you weren't planning on a lot of what you're dealing with. And so the first thing to do is to make sure you have no direction. We have money budgeted for the kids. We have money budgeted for clothes. We have money budgeted, blah, 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 blah. And that's someone, when you hear that kind of language, that is someone who has planned. So about how we're saving money for retirement. We'd love to do that big vacation, but we're really working on doing it aggressive on our retirement numbers. How about debt? It's easy to amass debt. How about a plan on getting out of debt? Occasionally we get calls. People do need help to get out of debt. And it is a very, very real thing. The highest the credit card companies could charge you in interest is 29.99%. Did I say 30%? I am sorry, 29.99%. Sounds better, right? And so 30% interest that's a big interest hit. And it'd be very, very hard to pay that back if you don't have the cash flow. How about colleges? Colleges are going up to about 100,000 a year this year. They're at the high 90s. I haven't seen one at 100. I've seen some close, think Occidental, Colby College in beautiful Maine. Beautiful school, beautiful, beautiful state. I don't think it's expensive to live in that part of Maine, but maybe, I don't know, but it's $100,000 a year. So number 2 is, we talked about not having a plan was number 1. Number 2 is debt. Debt becomes more of like a cancer because of the high interest rates. And you have to understand, here's a rhetorical and cute definition of credit card debt. Means for buying something that you don't need at a price you cannot afford with money that you don't have. And that's what credit card debt is. You didn't have the money. And so we put on a credit card thinking that we'll pay it off someday. And hopefully you do. But debt is a major obstacle because even if the markets, we have a very good year coming into an election, we had predicted this, a very good year, let's say 15, 18%. But if you have 10, 20, 30,000 in credit card debt, you're losing 18%. You're actually losing more than that because the credit card company is charging you interest. And had you put that money in the markets, you would have gotten 16, 17, 18%. So when you add the 2 numbers up, your opportunity cost of capital, which is a very big technical Columbia University graduate school term, your opportunity cost of capital is really 36% on the money of what you could have had. You're paying someone else 18% on the money, and you could have made 18% on the money. So you add the 2 up, 36%. It's a big hole. It's a good way to keep yourself more and more in the survival mode and less into the growth mode. Another thing that's important is that people don't know their budget. So again, the first one is not having no direction. Second one is debt. Number 3 is a budget. So what's a budget? It's really a mathematical confirmation. I think we're spending too much. Oh, did you know that you spent that on Amazon this week or this month or today, depending on how you look at it. So it's one of those things. You want to make sure you have a budget. We could send you a free cash flow sheet, just kind of looks at, hey, this is what I pay for our cable bill. This is what I pay for our cell phones. And at the end of the day, you could take a look. The budget's not there. A budget gives you power. People are worried. I know in financial planning, sometimes couples come in and we start looking at their budget and we start, hey, where's the money going? And it could be, depending on the discussions prior to coming to visit me, it could be a very heated experience and becomes accusatory. And a lot of times we're just trying to gather facts so we get help. And it's not me accusing, but the dynamic comes in with the couple that becomes a little accusatory. So it's important to know, what does it take to run your world on a monthly basis? And it doesn't have a lot of feelings attached to it, just trying to get a number. So the cash flow sheet would certainly help. This is the money coming in versus the money going out. So another thing that's been painful is inflation. This is something you didn't plan for. It should be in your plan, but it hasn't been planned for. We've had a very strong inflation in the last few years. We went from 1.8% to almost 9% at one point, coming back down. So very, very important to know that because it gets very, very scary. This is your rate of inflation change. That's what this is. This is actually your inflation numbers. Is the forward expected inflation rate. which seems like, oh, 2.32, that's reasonable, 2% inflation, but we're not experiencing that. People's, particularly in the insurance side of things, homeowners insurance has gone 25% in the last 2 years. We're seeing inflation on car insurance. I mean, it's not like we've had more accidents. Matter of fact, we were kind of parked for a year or two during COVID. But for some reason, the car insurance has gone up quite a bit. We're seeing in the prices of food, and which is very, very important. And more importantly, the price of shelter. So it costs more to borrow to buy a house, costs a heck of a lot to rent an apartment, particularly around the urban areas like New York City. Those prices haven't gone down. Now, and here's the thing about it. Once you start charging more for something, it's very, very hard to charge less, right? So if I was able to get a sandwich for $9, a hero at a store, at a deli, and that hero now is $14, $15, $16, it's going to be very, very hard for the deli owner to say, you know what, we're going to offer these back to $9 again. It's a very sticky inflation, very hard to get around. Once your homeowner's insurance goes up 25%, very, very hard. I'd say historic since I've been alive, that watching these things that you'll see, oh yeah, you know what, you guys have been great. We haven't had any storms, no risk has been averted. Let's lower your homeowner's insurance. Just doesn't happen. So that's all part of the cost of living and things that could prevent you from becoming fiscally fit. So it's important to know that. And inflation certainly is a very, very big catalyst in that. Now, if you look at a 2% inflation, if I invested money, which I could have 2 or 3 years ago at 2%, using the rule of 72, it would take me 36 years if I put in $10,000 at 2% compound interest to get to double my money to 20,000. Now at 7%, it reduces very, very quickly. You'll be able to double your money in 10 years. But here it would take me 36 years to double my money to get 20,000. So so we need to outpace inflation, which also then shows that the money you had in January is not the same, even if you had the same dollar in the bank in January, it's not the same dollar in the bank that you had in December because we've had inflation impacting those dollars tend to be worth less. So we need to plan for that. That's what inflation's about. And very, very important to make sure we save some extra money just to account for inflation. Taxes. Well, right now we're in the lowest tax rates in our lifetimes. And the problem is that outside how many true tax savings plans. It takes a bite out of your retirement because when you take money out of an IRA, depending on your age, not depending on, but over 59 and a half, when you do take money out of your IRA, you will get taxed on it. It'll come out as ordinary income, and depending on how much income you have already, it just adds on to the ordinary income. Thankfully, the government moved it to age 73 before they force you to take money out, but not everybody's fiscally fit enough to be able to wait until 73, and they may have to take out the money sooner, and that becomes a problem. But then the question is, what will be the taxes when I turn 73? And that's a big question. So, a financial house, like financial planning, like a home, requires a solid planning. Now, let's look at some of the 6 key components to become fiscally fit. Cash management, let's look at your cash flow sheet, risk management, investment planning, tax planning, and retirement planning, estate planning. So the first points again, let's go over it. Not having, failure to have any direction, debt management, and we want to take a look at both taxation and where you're going with your plans in terms of a cash flow sheet. Get a budget together. If you got the budget together, you got debt under control, and you have some direction, then we could steer the ship. And so here's some of the ways that we could steer the ship, and this is how you become fiscally fit. All right, let's look at the foundation of your financial house. Cash management, the most important area of planning, how much cash you got coming in, how much is going out. Let's take a look at it. Net income. If you're married, put the 2 numbers. This is after you've paid taxes, after you put in your 401k. And then you look at your expenses. This top number is actually what hits the bank. The middle number is what you're going to, and that's where the cash flow sheet comes in. All the expenses going out. I mean, you could audit yourself, pull out all these card statements and figure out when money's going out. And do you have a positive? This could be a negative cash flow. So let's see what's causing the negative cash flow. This one little slide here can give you a lot of power in getting control of your finances, which I feel is very, very important. Let's look at savings, emergency fund. So we want to see a single person should be able to, all things in place, should be able to have some money in a emergency fund for themselves, just sitting in a bank. Maybe, trying to earn, 3 to 5% interest on that, but it's got to be liquid. And how much did you have set aside for emergencies? God forbid, should you need a boiler or a roof, refrigerator, that those assets are there. 4 tires for your car, those assets are there. So, and what are the primary reasons that you would need as cash flow to have that, just in case something negative happens? What can you do now to improve your cash flow? This is very, very important. So get a big refund that most people just spend when you can increase your monthly income pay. How do we do that? Give yourself a raise and reduce stress. Well, there's 2 sides to the equation, right? Let's get these credit cards, get you paying either less or find a card that has less interest. See if we get some of these special deals that are out there, reposition the credit cards. If you have to refinance a home, they may not be perfect right now in this environment, but when we wrote those slides, it was a better strategy. There's other things you can look at. There's 2 things. There's revenues and then there's expenses. Something that's failed a lot of municipalities and governments, including the US government. What can come in versus taxes, that's what they raise in taxes, and what they spend. You can control a little bit on the spending side since you're the one doing the spending. How about risk management? You're trying to look at something called insurance. This is Life Insurance Awareness Month at the end of September. We'll be in that month for a few more days. So this is a way to shift the risk away from yourself, which means the full cost of you paying it to another. I'm telling you, I got this glass insurance that's part of my auto insurance. And I've put in several claims because I was driving on the expressway when they were under some major construction. Maybe you were doing the same thing at some point. And, a windshield these days is several $100s. And then you need to have somebody else like sort of realign the controls for, the blind spot monitoring system and some of the other things, which is all windshield related. So a windshield now could cost, $1,200, $1,300 out of pocket between both the windshield and then having someone realign all your blind spot, all these electronic doodads that go on your car right now to keep you safe. And I was thankfully have full glass coverage and no cost, no copay for that on my policies, and that's been very helpful. And trust me, I was driving years without any cracked windshield, but having a few cars, whatever car I took, eventually a stone would hit the windshield, and it's hard to drive like that. So having the auto insurance shifted the risk away from me to an insurance company. That was part of the risk that I shifted. For that, it cost me $700 every 6 months for that car. And for shifting that risk away from me to the insurance company, I paid something called a premium. So it's really the transfer of risk from one to the other. And it's really a fancy word for insurance, transferring risk away from you to a company. So areas, life insurance, the possibility of someone passing, disability, possibility of someone becoming too sick to work over the period of their lifetime. You look at health insurance, obviously very important. You're getting sick or something catastrophic, such as, other maladies. Long-term care insurance, transferring the risk of having to use your own savings to take care of you while you're in years or unable to take care of yourself. Of course, auto, I just discussed. Homeowners insurance, another risk in case we have some huge storm, and liability insurance in case something happens around you or your property. Liability insurance is important. So investment planning, yeah, we want to look at also, let's look at the investments, where they invested, how old is my client, what percentage is their assets in risk versus non-risk assets, what percentage is in retirement assets versus money they can have right at their fingers, what percentage of the money they have right on their fingers can is taxable and could add to their tax return. I'm telling you, there's a lot in the investment planning. And so part of it is not having a direction with your investments, no sufficient investment policy statement. Here's why we're investing. Here's why this joint account with my wife, this is why we're investing. And we're looking to do this. There's no policy statements with anything. So he's just kind of investing, which is could work. If in a positive market, everything looks good, obviously, but in a negative market is when we look at some of these things. What rate of return do you need to achieve? And investing without any idea what the real risk is in a portfolio. So real risk could be anything, you just not just it's something that could be detrimentally affect your future income and or future wealth in a negative way. So investment goals, some people are looking for safety, some people are looking for income. Those are different strategies. If you're looking for income, certainly a different strategy. Had you invested in bonds in 2022, your money would have been safe, but you would have lost about 13% in value because interest rates went up. So that's important to know. You thought, I was trying to save I was trying to be safe here. And next, my portfolio is down. Now I'm not taking money out. It's a paper loss, but it's something to look at. Or am I looking for growth? There were some times last year where markets didn't look good until last October. And then they, for 2 months or out of the year, they look very good. So that's the investing for growth. So you got to understand the ups and downs with all of those, but we just want to make sure that your investments match your objectives. It's also tax planning. Where do I take money from if I need it? Should I take it from my IRA? Should I take it from something else? Tax planning can be very, very important too as we roll into this, because tax planning can have a major effect. We know what the taxes are today. We know what the taxes will be next year, but how about the year after that? We don't know because the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expires. So we want to make sure if we have something we know will be taxable in the future, maybe we can move it into something that either pay the taxes now and you won't have to pay taxes in the future. And I'm thinking of a Roth IRA from a traditional IRA, something like that. To what extent? So you could pay the taxes now while the taxes are low. Because as you know, even in the debates, people are talking about raising taxes. And we'd like our clients to keep as much money as they possibly can. Understandably, we all need to pay our fair share as well. So here's the difference between taxes over time. Here's somebody who's put $250 a month in their account for 10 years. Tax deferred return versus a taxable return. A little bit of a difference after 10 years. Obviously, as time goes on, those differences because you kept more of the money. You were able to sock away more, and you can see for after 40 years, it's over $250,000 difference between using, not having your money grow without paying taxes on it versus having your money grow and pay taxes on it, assuming an 8% return. All right, well, retirement planning extremely important as well. We want to make sure that we have some money coming in when we decide to hang up our cleats. Let's take a quick look. Here's a great equation. I want you all to write it down. No, I'm only kidding. Please don't write this down. Based on the following: current value of all the retirement, that's RACV, plus Social Security and pension money. You can see right there. And then you take a look at this formula here. Factoring and on factor means the word multiply. Remember, factoring in ongoing contributions to your retirement plan accounts and all this stuff, and the number of years you have until retirement. Factoring in inflation, which is another choice right there. And assuming an interest rate that you may receive on the accounts while you're getting older, while you're aging. And how many of you will know how much you'll be making in retirement? Now, my dad would add, he's an engineer and he's 94. He goes, very simple, Craig. You can figure out retirement. How much have you got now? And what year, what day do you plan on dying? What, Dad? What year do I plan on? He goes, yeah, you just take the number of months between your age now and the day you plan on. That's an engineer for you. Yes, okay, Dad, we'll figure that one out. But that's how he goes. That's how it's great person. That's how the engineers think of things. It's a simple equation. We could figure it all out. There's really a lot of things. Your retirement income will come from 3 basic sources: your pension plan, 401k, 403bs if you're a teacher or in a hospital, your 457 if you're law enforcement. We have Social Security. A lot of people depending on Social Security. I would continue to depend on Social Security. But as you know, there's a lot of questions about the future of it, just from their own letter that they send out every year in terms of the Social Security Trustees Report. And anything that you might have done on the outside, your IRAs, Roths, investment accounts, CDs, money market, annuities, fixed and variable, all of that counts into how much you could use for your retirement, because this is critically important. Let's talk about estate planning. So also so you want to make sure that this is in place, because we need to know who to leave the assets to. For many of you, it's very clear, but for some of you, it may be less than clear. We had a client in yesterday with her last sister is in a nursing home. She's not young herself, this woman, from the Huntington area. And so now it's sort of a challenge as to where do we put these. She doesn't want to give it to Kathy Hochul. She did say that. She doesn't want to give it to any president of the United States, whoever it is. And so she wants to make sure the assets go directed to who she wants it to. And I had been mentioning it for years, knowing her, but now she's starting to mention it. So we gave her a number. We got to make sure she dials it. We don't do this in our office. We have a CPA, but we don't do that part. And hopefully she gets that done. So I'll check in with her. But very, very important to have a plan. And she obviously has been thinking about it. And the people that would inherit her assets certainly are not around or not cogent enough to be able to take the assets. So when you look at estate planning, again, this is having a direction going forward, how to get yourself out of this. Trusts, wills, probate, trusts, or just a document saying I'd like to leave these assets to somebody. There's irrevocable and revocable. I'm sure Susan in the library would have somebody come in and talk about the different types of trusts. Simply put, an irrevocable trust can't be revoked, and more used for Medicare planning and things like that. And a revocable trust is more used. It means it could be revoked at any time, and that's really sort of like similar to an IRA where you could change the beneficiaries. You still maintain control over the assets. But that's as far as I'll get. I'll leave it to an attorney to discuss some of the other nuances. A will is a last will and testament. This is who you're saying you give the money to. Probate is something that in New York State and a lot of states, if you have a will, it has to go through probate, and that's how that works. Meaning that the probus, from the Latin probate, probus, to decide, it goes before a judge to decide, and the documents that you would need to go through probate would be an appointment of a judge to an executor of the estate, and then all sorts of other stuff so that the person who's the executor can now start to disperse the money as per the will. There's taxes and fees and distributions. Make sure that, a lot of times there's things such as life insurance in a trust, and therefore there's no taxes that cover some of that. Fees in terms of not just the lawyer's fees, but the fees to sell the house, the fees to pay the taxes on the house, and how to distribute the assets, the reading of the will and what happens thereafter. And of course, gifting, you gift now, and so less goes into your taxable estate. All right, so today we talked about the 4 obstacles. Number 1, not having a plan, if you recall that. Debt management is number 3. I skipped number 2, which is also very, very important to make sure you know what you have in your cash flow sheet. And then we talked about 6 key components to help you move forward and how to implement them. And that's, getting your estate plan, as we just discussed, as well as getting your assets in order, controlling your debt, and investing in ways that as you get older, you don't have the same investments that you had when you were 40. If you're 65 and you have the same assets, it could be a little questionable, and it could be a little risky for you. You want to start to dial down the risk. Anyway, so the 6: cash management, risk management, investment planning, tax planning, retirement planning. Once you have a direction, we can give you some components to go in. So let's look at cash management first. I would start to look at that. It's also like to take a look at the risk management, the insurance side of the equation. And then you start to go into investment planning and tax planning, retirement planning, and estate planning. All right, you guys start building your house. We're always here to help at Craig James Financial Services, so you know that. We do get some calls from our presentations on occasion. I want to make sure that you know where you are where you're going and maybe some things that could be tweaked a little bit. A lot of people have come in, they're pretty well prepared. I've been appreciative of that. And then a lot of people don't know where to start and they're kind of like they're in the woods. So I don't know if you're in the woods or you're kind of somewhat prepared, but need a second opinion. You're more than welcome to let us know. And we'd be more than happy to work with you. All right. How to review. You can't just have a plan. All plans need to be reviewed, whether it's an escape plan, whether it's something in a school district, or it's in a library. All plans need to be reviewed. It's very important to review your own plan. We spend a lot of time reviewing what other people's plans. We need to get our own plans in place. All right, here's our little, here's our little information here. As Susan, we are done. We thank you. It's been a great group. I'm very happy to have everybody here. Are there any questions? I have a few moments.
Let me just allow people to unmute themselves. So if anybody does have a question, you can unmute yourself and ask Craig.
You go, boy, that was pretty pleasant. I was able to close my eyes while Craig was speaking. It's got one of them voices, you know?
One of those voices. Well, maybe you were just very thorough and people took notes. And also just to mention, Craig will be with us again next week.
Oh, yes.
On Thursday, same time. The program we have scheduled is New Approaches to Investing.
Oh, Susan, I have to be honest with you, next week I'm going to be in the Greenbrier Resort and I've cut out some time. That's in West Virginia, by the way. The historical battle, you can read about it in your library. The Greenbrier Resort and a historical battle took place, as well as some other things. And I'll be there for a couple of days.
I had a relative who worked there as a chef, so I have never been
myself. Are you
myself.
kidding me? Oh my goodness.
Years ago. I've never been, but I've heard it's beautiful.
I did too. I've never been either, but I want to let you know it's not easy to get there if you're a New Yorker or anywhere else, pretty much. Got to fly into Roanoke, Virginia, and then kind of drive 2 hours.
Wow. I hope it's worth it for you.
I hope so too.
So do you have someone else doing the presentation next week, or are you going to?
No, I'll be doing it from the Greenbrier.
All right.
If I can't, obviously I will have somebody, but we'll let you know in advance.
Okay.
But right now, if the internet is spotty, then we'll certainly make some accommodations.
Wonderful. So, well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. And thank you, Craig and Jenna and Inez, who apparently is on deck for technical services.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all. All right.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.